In this video, we're going to discuss how we can configure a symbol to handle input and reflect various condition states. So we're going to configure a symbol for notification using Boolean input. We're also going to configure a symbol to reflect various condition states using numeric input, and then I'm going to show you how we can, in run mode, dynamically change the symbol ID to create a special or a custom toggle effect. I'm going to start by setting some base controls here on my page. So I'm going to add a simple checkbox which is going to be used to indicate auto mode. I'm going to also add a slider control, and I'm going to add a simple radio gauge. So these will be the base controls in my system. I'm going to bind this first checkbox to auto mode, and I'm going to set the text of that to SP auto mode. I'm also going to bind the slider to my set point, and I'm going to bind my orange radio gauge here to my process variable. And so I'm just going to go into run mode here and confirm that all of that is working. I should see my set point jumping around every 5 seconds. If I turn off auto mode, it stabilizes and I can manually drag it around, and as I do that I can see that my PV value is running correctly. So that looks good so far. I'm now going to add another checkbox, another simple checkbox, and I'll just position this one up here, and let me just align those two. And this second checkbox is going to control some of my symbols that I'll add here in a second. I'm going to start by adding the text "pipe is cracked" to that checkbox, and now I'm going to add 3 different symbols. So here is symbol 1. That's actually going to be a shining light. I'll come back and set that in a second, and then I'm going to add 2 other symbols right there. And so let me now choose my shining light notification from the Cogent Symbols symbol set, and I'm going to shrink the size of this down a little bit. I'm going to use this symbol. I'm going to use Boolean input for this symbol. So basically when the pipe is cracked, I want the light to be red and flashing. And for this symbol here, I'm going to have it represent one of our pipes. So for this guy, I'm going to use the category of pipes. Here we go. And I'm going to choose a short horizontal pipe. And this other symbol, this third one here, is going to use a symbol from the mixers category. And I'm going to, I'm going to specifically choose a screw type mixer, and I'm going to make that symbol much bigger, and I'm going to set this short horizontal pipe up so that it looks as if it's basically feeding this screw type mixer. So let me just kind of join those guys up together, and I'll make that a little bit bigger. So I have 3 different symbols on my page, and I'll just kind of move these around a little bit. Move my gauge up to here, for example. So I've got 3 different symbols, and what I want to do is set this light up so again it's going to be flashing and red when the pipe is cracked. So let's start with that one. So I'll, in a previous video you may have seen how we overrode various configuration parameters, but this time we're actually going to use an input for this, and the input value of course could be a number from a data point, or in this case I can actually use simple binding, and I'm going to bind this symbol's input to the value of that checkbox, pipe is cracked. And I'm going to notice that because that checkbox really only does provide a Boolean set of properties, I do want to treat that input as Boolean. when I do treat the input as Boolean, what that means is that I will only be able or only need to configure state 0, which would be used when the state is false, and state 1. So I'm going to expand these areas here, and for state 0, which corresponds to when the pipe is not cracked, I'm really happy with the way it is. I'm not going to have the light flash. I'm not going to have a particular color. But when the pipe is cracked, I want to use a particular color. Specifically, let's choose red. There we go. And I also want to indicate that the symbol should be flashing, and I can even go as far as to specify the blink rate, which right now you'll notice is once per second. I'm going to change that to have that light blink once every quarter second. And even though the symbol that I've chosen, which is the shining light, does not support rotation behavior, I can turn that off. I really don't want it to rotate. So if this is working so far, what I should see is that as I select my checkbox, pipe is cracked, I should see that the light turns red and begins to flash, and that seems to be working correctly. I'm going to use the same technique for this pipe. I want to indicate that the input of this pipe is bound to the value of that checkbox. There we go. And I want to indicate that the state should simply be red when that checkbox is turned on. And so that should work. There we go. Works just fine. Okay, so what we've seen so far is how we can use a Boolean input to manage the configuration of this symbol. The next one here I'm going to use is the mixer, and I'm going to handle this one a little bit differently. I want the mixer to be bound to PV, and as PV transitions through various ranges, I want the condition color and behavior of this mixer to reflect different condition states. So specifically, let's start off here by binding, there we go, the input of this symbol to PV. And in this case, you'll notice that immediately that mixer has gone green, and the reason is that the checkbox for treat input as Boolean is currently set on, which basically means any value of 0 will correspond to state 0 or false. Any other value will correspond to state 1, which you'll see right now is green, and so the symbol has gone green. Well, that's not what I want to do. I do not want to treat the input as Boolean, so I'll turn that off. Instead, I want to just deal with these numbers in various ranges. So I'm going to go up here to state 0, and when the value is less than or equal to 35, I want the condition color to represent yellow, and I'm going to indicate that that symbol should be blinking. Let me just collapse that one and now go to state 1. When the value is less than or equal to 65, I want the condition to be transparent, and so that should take on the base color, which I think was just a silver, and I do not want blinking or rotating or anything like that. And when the state of the input is less than or equal to 100, I want the color of the control to be red, and I want it to be blinking, let's go half a second per blink. And so you'll notice that when I now go into run mode here, and you've probably already figured out that this is working correctly, I'm going to turn off the auto set mode. You'll notice that as I drop the slider into, say, the normal range, and you can see the gauge here is reflecting a value between 35 and 65, so all is well, and my symbol simply has my base color. But as I drop down below 35, bang, as soon as that needle passes below 35, the symbol starts to blink yellow. And of course, if I go up the other end as soon as I pass 65, the symbol starts to blink faster and it's red. So that seems to be working correctly. Let me just go back to design mode here. Now, one of the other things that I want to do, and this is a little bit of an advanced feature, we're kind of using a scenario whereby we indicate the pipe is cracked. So what I really want to do is change the appearance of this symbol when the pipe is actually cracked. Specifically, I want to show a cracked pipe. So if you have a look right now at this symbol, you'll notice that the selection of this indicates that it's coming from the pipes category, and it has a very specific symbol ID. Well, we can dynamically change that symbol ID in run mode to choose to end up basically choosing a separate symbol. So I'm going to note this symbol right now, this symbol ID 207-838-3901, and you'll notice that if I change the symbol to a cracked horizontal pipe, it's a different symbol ID and it actually looks cracked. So what I want to do at runtime is actually toggle between those two symbol IDs and have the input, have the symbol ID of this control bound to that value. So I'm going to start by adding an advanced checkbox. And you may have seen the advanced checkbox before. It's obviously very similar to the simple checkbox, but it does have a couple different values. I'll start by just going to my checked state and my unchecked state. So when this pipe is cracked, I also want to have the is checked property of this checkbox control the is checked property of this. So I'm going to bind the is checked property of my advanced checkbox to the is checked property of my simple checkbox. Second thing I'm going to do is go back and grab those symbol IDs and copy them into the unchecked state and checked state. So let's go back and grab this. If the pipe is cracked, I want to use, and I'm just going to copy this, so Control C, I'm going to take the symbol ID of the cracked pipe and put that into the checked value for that checkbox. And when I select the non-cracked or the short horizontal pipe, which was this one, I'm going to copy that and place it in the unchecked value. There we go. And just while I'm here, I'm going to change the colors. I do not want lime. I'll just change these to indigo in both cases, or indigo and red, so we can kind of see the difference. So I'm also going to notice that I have the ability to output the text or the string associated with this control. So rather than using your text here, I'm going to actually bind the text of this checkbox to the same control. I'm going to bind it to this control, so binding it to itself basically, but binding it to the output value of the checkbox. And so you'll see that when I go into run mode here, as I choose pipe is cracked or pipe is not cracked, I automatically select a different value. And what I now want to do is use the value associated with this checkbox to control the symbol ID of this symbol. So I'm going to select that symbol. I'm going to find the symbol ID. I'm going to notice that it's bindable, and I'm going to use simple binding to bind to the output value there. And so as I go into run mode, you'll see that now when I choose pipe is cracked or not cracked, the actual symbol ID changes for that symbol, which kind of produces an interesting effect. Let me just turn off auto mode there, because the changes in color there drive me a bit bonkers. So again, very, very nice effect. Now, we clearly do not want the user to interact with this checkbox, so we have a couple different options here. You'll notice that this checkbox has a enabled property, and so I can turn that off. And of course, when I go into run mode now, the user cannot interact with this checkbox. But you know what? The user probably doesn't even need to see this checkbox. So I'm going to go down to the content visibility and appearance properties, and I'm going to set visible in run mode off. And so now, of course, when I go into run mode, the pipe is cracked, not cracked, but I don't see that other checkbox at all. So that's a nice way of providing some functional behavior to your page without requiring the user to actually interact with that control. So in this demonstration, you've seen how we can use symbols to provide both a Boolean type notification as well as a condition indication based on some input value from a data point.